In this Avalanche AVAX live trading analysis, we break down the key price action levels, Fibonacci zones, and swing trading setups you should be watching right now. This AVAX live trading update covers support and resistance, market structure, and potential breakout scenarios so you can understand the Avalanche price action and market direction now. Let's begin. First, we need to get some perspective. And with this Avalanche chart, the higher timeframe structure is actually very clean. The 2026 high was made on 14th January at 14.940, and the 2026 low was made on 6th February at 7.577, giving us a yearly midpoint at 11.258. That midpoint is important because it immediately tells us where the balance of power currently sits inside the yearly structure. And importantly, that midpoint has remained completely unchallenged ever since Avalanche formed the February low. So straight away, we can say something very important about the current AVAX live trading environment. Avalanche price action is still trading entirely within the lower half of the yearly range, telling us that despite several recovery attempts, sellers still maintain broader higher timeframe control for now. Now that we have some structure and context in place, we can begin focusing more closely on the swing structure itself. From the February low, the highest point Avalanche managed to reach was the 17th March high at 10.534. Then, after that rally failed, the market rotated lower and formed a structural swing low on 29th March at 8.402. And this becomes important because that March range has effectively controlled almost all Avalanche price action for nearly 2 months now. In other words, March created the dominant operating range for the market. And once we understand that, we can begin boxing in the market structure more effectively. One final thing we need to add is the midpoint of that March range, which comes out at 9.468. Now this is where the chart becomes very interesting. We can clearly see that AVAX live price action continues repeatedly hitting its head against the underside of that 9.468 midpoint. That level is effectively becoming the battleground between buyers and sellers. Because in market structure terms, midpoints often behave like equilibrium zones. If price starts confidently closing above the midpoint, it usually suggests buyers are gradually reclaiming control. But if price remains trapped underneath it, sellers continue maintaining structural dominance. And right now, Avalanche is still negotiating around that exact area. This is what we call boxing in the market. We identify the swing points, and then we study how price behaves around those structural levels. Now, once we zoom in to the last 3 months of Avalanche live price action, another important detail begins standing out. Buyers did attempt a rally higher to challenge the March high, but not only did that rally fail, price also broke beneath the minor structural low at 8.933. At first glance, some traders may have interpreted that as a bearish continuation. However, something very important happened immediately afterwards. The liquidity sweep lower was aggressively rejected and Avalanche bounced straight back higher again. That tells us sellers were unable to maintain acceptance beneath the broken structure. And failed acceptance often becomes an important clue in crypto trading market structure. Because when markets break lower but quickly reclaim lost ground, it can sometimes signal exhaustion from sellers rather than true bearish expansion. Now this is where the Fibonacci analysis becomes extremely useful. Because once we layer on our Fibonacci tools, we can clearly see why Avalanche may have reacted so aggressively from that area. We actually have 2 separate Fibonacci support zones currently sitting underneath price. The first Fibonacci support zone sits between 9.075 and 9.167, and below that we have another Fibonacci support zone between 8.797 and 8.830. So Avalanche currently has 2 structural support regions helping stabilize price action underneath the market. That matters because layered support structures often strengthen the probability of buyers attempting another reaction higher. However, the market still faces a major challenge overhead. On the upside, our Fibonacci resistance zone sits between 10.051 and 10.091. And this is not just ordinary resistance. This becomes a much more formidable resistance cluster because the 2026 anchored VWAP sits directly inside that region near 10.050. And whenever multiple technical resistance factors begin clustering together, Fibonacci resistance, anchored VWAP, previous swing highs, and midpoint resistance, markets often react very strongly there. As we continue this Avalanche live trading analysis, pay close attention to how Avalanche price action reacts around these Fibonacci levels and key swing trading structures. These critical swing trading structures are critical for understanding the Avalanche live market structure and potential next price action move. What we are seeing right now is extreme compression developing over time. The monthly ranges have steadily declined from 5.758 to 2.739, then 2.132, then 1.534, and now 1.294. That is a massive contraction in volatility. And compression phases like this rarely last forever. In fact, the tighter the compression becomes, the greater the probability that the market eventually produces a strong directional expansion move later on. So while Avalanche may currently appear slow and relatively directionless on the surface, underneath the market is actually storing energy through tightening volatility conditions. And eventually, that pressure usually releases through expansion. The key question now becomes, which direction will Avalanche choose? If buyers can reclaim the March midpoint at 9.468 and then start pushing through the Fibonacci resistance cluster near 10.050, the market could begin building a much stronger bullish structure. However, if sellers regain control and Avalanche starts losing those layered Fibonacci support zones underneath price, then the broader compression structure may start resolving lower instead. Overall, this Avalanche live trading setup continues to show important price action reactions around major Fibonacci zones and swing trading levels. Continue watching the AVAX market structure, support and resistance levels, and the price action signals we have discussed today to see how Avalanche's live trading volatility reacts to these key levels. You are now several steps ahead of the majority of traders and investors with today's Avalanche live update. We hope we provided some value to you in this video. Join our free daily crypto trading newsletter. It's just a 5-minute read to keep up to date with our live outlook on Bitcoin and altcoin. The link is above and in the description. If you found this analysis useful, subscribe to Crypto Trading Mastery and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next daily video. Thanks for watching.